in April of last year, and also to providing the benefits from that project to the community, including a substantial investment in affordable housing and the exciting partnership with Arlington Public Schools for the location of our community high school. We also remain committed to working with Amazon in the years ahead and look forward to coming up just around the corner this spring in June, the opening of phase 1 of HQ2 at Metropolitan Park. So with that, let me answer any and all questions that we may have. All right, I got to figure out how to do this efficiently.
I can go ahead and start for you, Christian.
Thank you, Ryan.
If that helps you. Sure thing. The first hand I saw go up was Matthew Barakat. I'm not sure about the last name. All right, maybe his hand went down. Let's see. All right, Heather Graf.
Hi, Chair Dorsey. Thank you so much for doing this. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Just wanted to ask you about, your reaction, when you heard this and your reaction, and does this concern you on any level?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. It really doesn't concern me. In fact, I'm quite understanding. If you look at the world, there is a lot of uncertainty about what is ahead. And as we all negotiate the post-pandemic reality, everyone from every sector is thinking about its long-term plans in a new light. And sadly, we don't all have all of the answers. So it's not incredibly surprising that Amazon is taking a pause before beginning the second phase of a project for which they haven't fully opened the first phase. And so from the very beginning, even before we got to today, we were looking at 2035 as the ultimate build out of HQ2. It's only because they proceeded building so aggressively and entitling the second project so early that I think it shifted all of us to believing that this was going to come a lot earlier. But if we take a step back and look at the state of the world as it exists now and what it was like when they brought HQ2 to Arlington, this all makes a lot of sense. And so taking a little bit of time to delay when they actually start constructing that second phase is really not disappointing. I think that we are still going to see all of the benefits that we envisioned at the beginning and all of the benefits that we talked about last year when we entitled the Penn Place project. It's just going to take a little longer to realize.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Heather. Next up is Leonard Fleming, and I should have mentioned this earlier, so apologies, but if you could just identify your outlet as well before you ask your question, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Leonard.
Okay. Chairman, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes, thank you.
Leonard Fleming from DC News Now. So you said that you don't have any concerns, but is there a point where this pause may cause concern if it's a longer than expected pause where you might think, okay, are they really going to abandon ship here? Is there a point where you think that it might get to where that will happen? And are you and your board in communications with Amazon to make sure that this still comes to fruition, given the amount of people who are moving to your city, ostensibly, because of all the jobs that are coming?
So every conversation that I've had with Amazon, what has been unwaveringly clear is their commitment to growing their corporate presence through HQ2 in Arlington, Virginia. The only scenario that I could envision that would cause me to actually have concern would be an economic catastrophe that befalls the country, the likes of which I'm not going to predict, and I'm not going to go into that headspace of fearing. So I think as I look at it, there's no indication that I have that as Amazon expands, that a central piece of that will not be HQ2 in Arlington. So the delay, again, doesn't invite worry. I don't think that Amazon is an entity, a corporate entity that is struggling. So I still am very confident, very bullish, if you will, about the realization of everything that we have envisioned up until this point.
Great. Thanks very much, Leonard. Next, we're going to go over to David Kaplan, and then after David, we'll go to Ted Oberg. But David Kaplan, over to you, please.
Hi, thank you so much for making the time. Just wanted to, first of all, see David Kaplan with Fox 5. First of all, wanted to see if you've gotten any indication of how long this delay may be. That's my first question. And then my second question is, I know there's a perspective out there that, through the HQ2 process, that a lot of local governments really kind of gave up a lot of, themselves to make this happen and recruit Amazon. And there's a perspective out there that local governments are sort of throwing themselves at Amazon and doing things that they might not ordinarily do, whether it's financial or otherwise. So what's your response to people who think sort of, Amazon's dictating the terms here and you guys are just sort of along for the ride?
Well, thank you, David, for the question. I think going back to when we brought HQ2 here, one of the things that made Arlington's recruitment and landing, if you will, of HQ2 so novel was that we didn't give up anything. In fact, one of the key selling points for why they were attracted to this community was that our plans for investing in our community and investing in our residents were not dependent on HQ2, and they found that they could be a partner with a local government as opposed to having this relationship where we would have to give up a lot in order to get them. So our plans for how we're building out in the national landing area have not changed. In fact, they're only going to be accelerated by HQ2's growth, which I want to take a step back a little bit. I want to remind everyone that at this point in the process, they're already ahead of what was projected before they came. So Metropolitan Park Phase 1 is going to open in June. And already Amazon has brought 8,000 employees to HQ2. And as those employees return to the office 3 days a week, beginning in May, that's going to create the vibrancy and the vitality in the surrounding area that we always envisioned. And to date, for those of you who don't know, any performance incentives that Amazon has with Arlington County have not resulted in any payments from Arlington to Amazon. So in terms of what we're getting, it's quite a lot. And in terms of what we're giving, it's what we always intended to give in order to build out Arlington and make it vibrant and strong.
Great. Thank you very much, David.
Sorry, just to follow up, the amount of time, did they tell you how long it may be, the delay?
No, they did not tell us a time specific, only that they would continue with permitting, seeking permits throughout this year. I think that means that there is some anticipation that they would move forward in the next calendar year, but when exactly that would be, what exactly that would look like, I still think that's a part of their discernment process.
Great. Thank you, David. Next up is Ted Oberg and Teo Armis. You'll be on deck. Over to you, Ted.
Chair Dorsey, thanks so much for taking the time. Ted Oberg from NBC4. You answered the question about they haven't paid any incentives. Have they earned any that are waiting to be paid? And then the second part of that is how badly do you need these workers back in the office? Just days ago, we heard from DC saying they are in a huge budget hole, largely because people aren't in their offices. How badly do you need them in town?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that question. The first part is no, they haven't earned the incentives and they haven't been paid. So I wasn't trying to be cute with language and talking about cash out the door, even though it's obligated. So they haven't earned the incentives because, as you may recall, the structured incentive deal with Arlington County was predicated not only on a number of jobs, which they're certainly on, a certain amount of office square footage that they would complete, which they are on target for, but also growth in the transit occupancy taxes, which hasn't been realized, mostly due to the pandemic. But because of that, the incentives haven't been earned and therefore haven't been paid. As to the second piece, I share the District of Columbia's and Mayor Bowser's incredible focus on returning workers to offices and the benefits that accrue to businesses that rely on those workers, whether it be the hospitality industry in the form of hotels who are going to be the places where conventions and conferences occur, but also to the independent lunch places and other businesses that rely on the vitality of workers who are not only getting lunch, but doing their dry cleaning and all of the other things that workers tend to do near their place of employment. So this focus on returning those workers to the office for at least 3 days a week is incredibly important. And I hope that this becomes sort of a model for other companies who are wrestling with the same issue. So yes, it's of existential concern, and I'm glad that Amazon is actually moving forward with something that's firm and concrete. And I hope that that's a model for others.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ted. Teo, you're up next, or you're up now rather than Matt Day. You're on deck. Over to you, Teo.
Hi there. Thank you so much for doing this. Good to see you, Teo Torres from the Washington Post. I am wondering if you can speak to the various elements of the Penn Place development. Is anything sort of more concrete, and do you have a sense of anything, the company sort of having committed more so to any parts of it, such as the Helix, or the new on-site facility for Arlington Community High School, the childcare facility on-site versus other pieces of it?
Thank you, Teo. So I think all of this is still to be determined, but it's my understanding that Amazon intends to, whichever way they proceed with Penn Place, to deliver the community high school as part of the first area of work. So I think that can take a variety of different configurations, but we already have a proposed path in place that for the first building that they construct, that include the community high school. And important to note also, they recognize that one of the community benefits that we in Arlington are most excited about, but that they too feel very excited to deliver, is the space for the community high school. And so they want to get that in as early as possible. And in the event that their pause to consider their long-term path forward causes any consequences to Arlington Public Schools in terms of leasing costs for the community high school, for example, Amazon has agreed to hold them harmless. So they're committed to delivering it as soon as possible, and we're very, very much excited by that.
Great, thank you, Teo. Matt Day, you're up next, and then on deck is going to be Matthew Barakat. Matt Day, over to you.
Thanks for doing this, Matt Day, Bloomberg News in Seattle. I'm wondering, given the 2025 deadline for some of the permitting that was attached to the site plan voted on last year, is there any concern that Amazon might blow through that and require sort of more substantial renegotiation of the community benefits and the whole package that the county and Amazon signed on to about a year ago? What's your expectation for that?
So thanks for the question. At this point, no, I don't have any indication that there's any retreat from any of those agreed upon entitlements. So if for any reason that were ever to come to pass, that wouldn't be something that would just happen behind closed doors. That would need to be subject to a further open community conversation about benefits and the conditions in terms of entitlement. But to date, we've gotten no indication that Amazon is looking to reconsider those terms or rethink those terms. Really, all this is, in terms of what we understand, is a delay with proceeding immediately. And again, that was something that was an expectation that came from their seeking entitlement last year. It wasn't necessarily a part of our thinking from the very beginning. We looked at this as not only a multi-year, but extending past a decade kind of build out and project. And it was only because of the early accelerated pace that I think we all kind of got a different feeling about what this could look like. But Amazon is still very much committed, as we understand it, to certainly fulfilling all of their plans and obligations within the window that was envisioned when they struck the deal to come here.
Thank you, Matt. Next up is Matthew Barakat. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And then after that, we'll go to Hannah Denham. Over to you, Matthew Barakat.
Yeah, this is Matt with Associated Press. Just one more question on those incentives. My recollection is on that hotel tax that that was sort of valued back at the time around 23 million. But obviously, like you say, pandemic and all those other kind of things have changed. Would it be your expectation that they would still be getting about 23 million in incentives from the county on that once they fulfill their obligations?
It all depends on the growth in the transit occupancy tax. And I will refer maybe to our staff from our Economic Development Department to follow up if there are any new analyses of what a projected growth in that tax would look like. Matthew, if you'll forgive us, when we look at the hotel sector specifically, if anyone pretends that they know sort of what the long-term outlook there is, I would be skeptical. So it really depends on how that industry grows as to what the incentives might look like. But you're correct in terms of the overall number that we projected in what I'll call the before times, but those before times have been entirely upended by the pandemic, and what assumptions go into thinking about how much incentive Amazon could realize from Arlington County. I don't have a firm number for you on, but our staff can follow up if they've got a more updated number.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Next up is Hannah Denham, and then we are going to open it up to anyone who's on the call. We'll try to figure out a way to do that orderly. But first thing, Hannah Denham, over to you.
Hi, Chair Dorsey. Thanks so much for your time. This is Hannah Denham with the Washington Business Journal. I have two
Hello.
quick questions. Number one, when did Amazon first communicate this change of plans to the board? And two, can you speak to what this means for Amazon's commitment to provide the $30 million to Affordable Housing Investment Fund, as well as what the impact is on local businesses and housing developers who are banking on this completing sooner, like retailers with leases in place?
Sure, thank you. So Amazon did share with us the substance of what has been broadly reported by many of the outlets on the call in advance. So this is not something that took us by surprise. The second parts of your question in terms of the other community benefits that are conditioned on the entitlement, there's no retreat from Amazon in terms of fulfilling them. Because the affordable housing contribution is due with certain phases of permitting with the phase 2 site, there will be further conversation about when they'll deliver that benefit. But I have heard in unequivocal terms from them that they intend to fully realize their $30 million affordable housing commitment. And then to the third piece about the businesses that are relying and hoping and looking to full HQ2 build out. I believe that we really have to focus on what are the positive advancements that we've seen thus far. 8,000 employees at HQ2 is a number that exceeds what was projected when they came. And so those employees returning to work at least 3 times a week is very much going to support the local macro economy, which is nothing but good things for those businesses that have already invested in being a part of the National Landing Area, for example. But it also is reflected in the continuing interest that we get from people who want to consider locating in Arlington. So Amazon moving forward in this way with the jobs being ahead of schedule and making sure that those employees are engaged and working in the local community, I think that this heralds good things for local business investment and local business opportunities.
Thanks, Hannah. Teo, I do see you have your hand raised. I'm not ignoring you. But I do want to open it up to anyone who might have dialed in or might have maybe unfamiliar with Teams or isn't able to raise the hand feature in Teams to see if anyone out there had a question. If you wanted to take yourself off mute and introduce yourself, we can get to some of those questions. Okay. Well, that offer stands if anyone's listening. But but let's see. I do see that. Is it Halei? I'm going to struggle with the name. I'm just going to go with Hedero, the last name it looks like.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm Holly Hedera. I'm also from the AP. Christian, can you say exactly, like, do you know around the time frame when Amazon told you the news about the pause?
It was
I know
recently.
that in
I,
advance.
I won't discuss exactly what date the conversation had, but it was a recent conversation.
All right, thank you.
And if I could ask, is your first name pronounced Hallelujah?
Yes, hallelujah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Teo, back to you.
Hi, hi again. I'm wondering if you can speak to any other sorts of investments that Arlington has made on this specific project. If there are any upfront investments, just sort of helping with site plans, transit improvements in the Pentagon City and Crystal City areas. How, if at all, does the delay impact those sorts of investments? Does Arlington plan on sort of slowing any of those transportation improvement projects? I'm thinking specifically about Route 1 and sort of all these other ways to build out the neighborhood that are sort of tied to the HQ2 project.
The short answer, Teo, is no. We're committed to those projects. They are not contingent on HQ2, but are intended to really be compatible with HQ2's development, but they're also for the good of our community. And again, with our still firmly believing that HQ2 will proceed on a schedule that was originally envisioned when Amazon chose Arlington. Nothing in terms of those other infrastructure investment plans remains changed from our perspective. We'll get into working with all of the partners to deliver the projects big, like CC to DCA, but then there's small projects in and around Amazon that we are going to continue to follow through with, and also look to further develop throughout our capital investment program, which we will work on again next year. So nothing in terms of that has changed. And HQ2 itself, the Penn Place project specifically, has a number of infrastructure improvements that we are very excited to see, even if they come a little bit later than maybe we thought last April.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. We started a couple minutes late, so we'll go just a couple minutes late. Once again, if you dialed in and you had a question, feel free to take yourself off mute and introduce yourself if you can't raise your hand feature. But I do see that Sarah Kim has her hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from WAMU, which is a local NPR station. Given that, we don't have a clear timeline for when construction is going to resume, and this is going to be a fenced construction site for an undetermined period of time, I imagine this might not be the most convenient for folks in the surrounding neighborhood. I'm wondering if you have been in conversation with any of the residents in the area, what concerns they've been telling you, and if so, like what you hope to do to address those concerns.
No, thank you. Yes, we've actually had a lot of concerns expressed from people in the neighborhood, not with the project, not with what the ultimate outcome will be, but they have certainly been challenged by the process. If you have spent any time in National Landing, the amount of construction going on and the associated consequences like sidewalk closures and detours has certainly been something that people have had varying degrees of challenge with. And so on one hand, while everyone is hopefully looking forward to the day where substantial construction is completed on many of the things that are going on in the area, I expect that for some of our residents, they'll look at this pause and have with it some degree of a sigh of relief that they'll get a little bit of a respite. But I don't want to oversell that point. I think our community, what makes it really special in Arlington, everyone is really focused on wanting the end game delivered, and they're looking forward to that. And most people are understanding that there's a fair degree of challenge that goes into getting to that point.
Great, thank you. And to wrap things up, we'll go over to Matt Day. Matt Day, take us out with the last question here today.
Pressure.
Appreciate it, Vince. Yeah, you said a little bit about this at the outset, but what did Amazon say to you about kind of the rationale for the pause? So I get that there's a bunch of dark clouds hanging over big tech generally, but for the sake of argument, Amazon turns the hiring spigot back on. 5,000 employees in a year was Seattle did that 10 years in a row, right? They could fill Met Place this time of year from now if they really wanted to. What are they telling you about kind of the reasons for the pause and why kicking it down the road makes sense right now?
I think I got that, Matt. But believe it or not, they don't share with us, nor do we ask anything about their internal business scan and analysis. But I do think that generally speaking, what I have heard, the general uncertainty that is existing at all segments of the economy, and certainly something that we as a local government have a great deal of uncertainty about our mid to long-term plans. I think they're no different. They are, really trying to take a pause and think about this consciously and make decisions that fully not only make sense in light of current conditions, but expected future conditions. I don't know anything more than that. And in that case, I don't really need to know anything more than that, because as a local government, I fully understand it. What is clear to us in local government is what prospects look like for the year ahead. Beyond that, there's a great deal of uncertainty, and I am certainly understanding that Amazon is in a similar place.
Great. Thank you very much, Matt. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to Chair Christian Dorsey, of course, for taking the time to answer some of these questions. Yeah, I appreciate you taking your time, everyone, today, and your questions and your patience as we put this together today. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.